Okay, so if you observe the previous program's output that we have seen, the applet window, the AWT controls were smaller in size. They were not visible when you are watching my screen on your phones or your laptops. But I try to increase the size of the font. So I'll show you the new feature also here. You can increase the size of the font of an applet window by using a font class. So we'll see that additional feature here in our two programs. So let us go to the program Checkbox Group, CB Group. So this program is to demonstrate how to create checkbox group. So when I say checkbox group, you have to understand that it is not actually checkbox, but it is a radio button. In Java, we call these radio buttons as checkbox group, and these checkbox group AWT controls are mutually exclusive. If one of them is selected, the remaining all the others will not be able to be selected, right? So that is the difference between checkbox and checkbox group. So now what I am doing is all these are familiar, so I need not explain you all these concepts. Let us see the class. So the class name is CB group. It is extending applet class and implementing item listener, because this checkbox group or checkbox, all these things will generate item event. So we require an item listener interface. So we are implementing item listener. Okay. So now a string message MSG variable is created and initialized to blank string, and then because we need to create checkbox group, so I'm creating objects for the class checkbox. So one is Windows, second one is Android, third one is Solaris, and fourth one is Mac. Then we need to group all these four checkboxes into a checkbox group so that they become radio buttons. So for that we require an object of class checkbox group. So I'm creating an object checkbox group for class checkbox group. So what is the object name? CBG. Fine. Then to set the font size of strings that we are displaying on the applet window, I'm simply creating a reference variable for the font class. So there is a predefined class called font in the package that we imported. Fine. So I'm creating an object called f of class font. Then look at the init method. So the first line in the init method itself. So I'm instantiating the f object, that is font object. So this font class has a constructor, parameterized constructor, which contains three parameters. So look at the three parameters. The first one is a string. So you need to enclose it in double quotes. Second one is a static variable, integer variable defined in font class. So you can access that static variables value by simply using the class name dot the variable name. So all these variables are integer values. So they are defined with capital letters. And then the third one is uh, the size with which you want to display the font, that is the text. So the font first parameter is nothing but the font style. So you know about font styles. You must have seen these font styles in PowerPoint presentations, in Word documents, or in any other text editors. Even the Notepad has some fonts. Fine. So if you can go to this format menu, you will be able to see font here. So there are different types of font styles here. So all these are font styles. So out of this you have Times New Roman. So this is Times New Roman font style. So you can have this font in a regular style. That means it will appear straight. You can have italic, you can have bold, and you can have bold italic, right? So this is how you can display with some size also. So even Notepad also provides us with uh, some font size. So let me change this back to Times New Roman, regular. Fine. So the first parameter for the font constructor is the font, which font you want to use. So I want to use Times New Roman, so I'm giving it in double quotes in the form of a string. The second one is uh, whether you want the text to be displayed in a plain, or that plain means it is regular, we have seen earlier, right? A plain or bold or italicized, you can specify that value. There are three different constants defined in this font class. So one is plain, second one is bold, the other one is italic. So if you give plain, so the text will be displayed in plain text without any bold letters, and they'll not be italicized. And this is the size of the font. The size of the font is given as 25. So totally you have three parameters. First one is which font you want to use. Second one is whether you want to display it in a plain style or a bold style or italic style. You can specify that with the second parameter. It is an integer parameter. So there are integer variables defined static. They are static integer variables defined in font class. So you can directly call them using the font class name dot the variable name. And the third one is the font size. So once we have set this font size for the applet window, now I'm instantiating the checkbox group CBG. Earlier we have just created reference variables for checkbox, even the checkbox group also, right? So now I'm instantiating first checkbox group with the default constructor for checkbox group class. Then I need to set the size for checkbox group. So to set the size for the checkbox group, so every source class, that means in delegation event model you have three entities, right? One is source, second one is event, and third one is listener, right? So sources and events are represented using classes, so we have discussed that long back. So now every source class in Java provides us with a method called setFont method. So you can call that setFont method, and you can pass as parameter the font object that you created. Then what will happen is this checkbox group will be set with the font uh, style that we have created with this f object. So what is the style we have created? Times New Roman font and plain text, and the size of the font is 25. So that will be applied to this checkbox group. So after that, what I am doing is I'm instantiating the four checkboxes: Windows, Android, Solaris, and Mac. Fine. Uh, we have already done this checkbox creation in the previous program where we have seen creation of checkboxes. But now what we are going to do is we have to group all these checkboxes. So we are using third or fourth version of the constructor for checkbox. So the first one is the label for that checkbox. So for Windows, the label is Windows, and the second parameter is whether you want to make this checkbox part of a checkbox group or not. So if you want to make it a part of checkbox group, then first of all you must have a checkbox group object created already. So we have already created a checkbox group CBG. So to that checkbox group I want to add this Windows checkbox. So you need to pass that as second parameter, and true. The third parameter is a boolean variable, so you know that if this is set to true, by default this checkbox will be selected. If it is set to false, it will not be selected. Okay. Then second one is Android. So I'm giving the label for Android as Android and adding to the checkbox group CBG, and this is not selected by default, so I'm giving false. So in the same way I'm doing it for the remaining two checkboxes also, Solaris, macOS, and I'm adding all these four checkboxes to the same CBG group, checkbox group. Fine. Except Windows, all the others are false, the third parameter. So it means that all the other three checkboxes will not be selected at the beginning. Only Windows will be selected at the beginning when you run this program. So now after that, so inside the checkboxes, I want to set the font for even the checkbox also. Earlier we have set the font for checkbox group, but we didn't set the checkbox font for individual checkboxes. So I want to set the same font for even the individual checkboxes also. So I can call that set font method using these checkbox objects. First I'm calling windows.setFont and passing f as parameter. So the same font that we created earlier will be applied for this Windows. So if you want to apply different font, then you can create a one more f1, another f object, that is font object, and give a different font style and font size for it and apply that also. But I don't want to create different font style for different checkboxes. I want every checkbox to be in a similar font style. So I'm giving same font for all the four checkboxes. Fine. So with that, we have set the font and we have created checkboxes and added them to checkbox group. But now we need to add these checkboxes to our applet window. So you have to call which method? Add method. So call add method and pass all those four checkboxes. First add Windows, then add Android, then thirdly add Solaris, and finally add Mac. So after these checkboxes are added to the applet window, now it is time for registering the listener interface for all these checkboxes. So what type of event will be generated? Item event will be generated through checkboxes, right? So we need to register with which method? Add item listener. So call add item listener with all the four checkboxes objects: windows.add item listener, android.add item listener, solaris.add item listener, and mac.add item listener. So with this, we have completed the definition for init method. Okay. Now we need to define the method that is part of the listener interface, that is item listener interface. So you have one method defined in this, declared in this interface, that is item state change, and it receives an object of type item event class. Okay. Then what you're doing here is simply making a call to repaint method. Then in the repaint method will be again calling paint method, and in the paint method, if you observe, I'm calling set font method now using G. G is nothing but a graphics object that is passed as a parameter to this paint method. So this will set the font for the string that we display. Earlier we have set the font for checkboxes and then checkbox group. We didn't set the font for any string text that is going to be displayed inside the applet window. So if you want to set the font for the entire applet window, then we have to call set font method, and this set font method is also defined in graphics class. So you can call that set font method using the graphics class object G. So G dot set font, and I'm passing the same F to this one. Okay. Then look at the message. Earlier the message string was initialized to a blank string. Now it is assigned a string called current selection, after that a colon symbol and a space, and then I'm appending a MSG uh, with the value that is returned by calling get selected checkbox dot get label. So if you observe, you will be finding this somewhat strange while calling this get selected checkbox method. Okay, so how I am calling this get selected checkbox? By using CBG. That means this get selected checkbox method is defined in which class? Checkbox group class. So this is going to return an object of type checkbox. This is going to return an object of type checkbox. So this highlighted part will be replaced with the object returned by get selected checkbox method. So what is this going to return? It is going to return the checkbox object. So once that checkbox object is returned, so which checkbox object will be returned? Either Windows or Android or Solaris or Mac, because these are the four checkboxes that we have in the checkbox group. So from among those four checkboxes, which one is selected currently, that checkbox object will be returned by this get selected checkbox method. So when that object is returned, that will be replacing this entire highlighted part. So now that object, using that object, you are calling get label. So you have seen this get label method we have used in the previous program where we have created checkboxes. They are not checkbox group, right? So using that checkbox object, you can call a get label method which will return the label associated with that checkbox. So you know what is the label for Windows? For Windows object checkbox, the label is Windows. For Android, the label is Android, all beginning with capital, first letter capital. Solaris, Mac, all these things, right? So that will be concatenated to the existing MSG string. So initially, what is the checkbox that is selected? We have selected Windows by default, right? So we have set that Windows checkbox uh, to the third parameter of the constructor to true. So that means this checkbox Windows will be by default selected soon after you run the program. So that will be returned. So what will be the complete string in MSG now? Current selection followed by a colon, and the label is Windows. So it will be displaying an output current selection Windows. Then I am drawing that string g dot draw string and passing that MSG as first parameter. So that will be displayed at coordinate 6 comma 100. So that's the reason why. So this is coordinate 6 comma 100. So if you observe, when we run the program, what is the output? Current selection is Windows. Okay, because by default Windows will be selected first. Now I would like to change that to something else, say Android. So soon after I selected Android, so you can see the output changing to current selection Android. Similarly, if I click on Solaris, current selection is Solaris. And similarly, if I click on Mac OS, current selection is Mac. So how you are getting this change in the output current selection? Because each time you make a selection, what will happen? Item state, item event will occur, and each time item event is occurred, automatically this method item state change method will be called. And when this item state change method is called, this method in turn is making a call to repaint. Fine. So the repaint method in turn will make a call to paint method. So what is paint method doing? It is painting the entire applet window once again with a new output. Fine. So that's the reason you are able to see the output in that way. So is that okay? Is the applet window output visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So shall we go for the next program? Choice.
Yes.
Good. So now let us see another AWT control, the last one that we are left over with in AWT controls. So that is choice. Let me first show you the output of this program so that you'll understand what is a choice. Earlier we have created list. Am I right or not? We have created list in previous classes. Now we'll see choice. So now look at the window, applet window. So this is a drop down menu. Actually in internet terminology we use this term called drop down menu. So you'll have a menu here, and when you'll have a down arrow button icon on the right side of this menu. When you click on that, some multiple options will be displayed, and what you can select any one of them, not all. Only one can be selected at a time. So whichever you select, that will be displayed in that window. Similarly, this is another choice. So this has three choice options. So whichever you select, that will be displayed in that choice window. So the basic difference you need to understand between choice and list. So what is the difference, basic difference between choice and list? Can anybody say? Can anyone say what is the difference you observe between choice and list?
Sir, choice is a drop-down menu, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Okay.
list is not a drop-down.
Okay, but uh, you must say this in a different way. So let me tell you that basically, if you have observed both the outputs of a list and choice, a list will display all the options in the list to the user at a time. Yes or no? A list will display all the options in the available options to the user at the same time simultaneously. But whereas choice will display only one option that is currently selected. If you want to go through all the options available, you have to click on that arrow mark, down arrow mark. Then this will display the available option. That means there will be multiple options in both choice and list, but list will display all the multiple options simultaneously to the user, whereas choice will display only one option that is currently selected. So that is the first difference. Second difference is you can select only one option in a choice, whereas list will allow you to select multiple options. Yes or no? First difference is first difference is choice will display only one option to the user simultaneously, whereas list displays all the available options simultaneously. So this is the first difference. Coming to the second difference, so got the difference, I hope. Choice will display only one option to the user simultaneously, whereas list displays all the available options simultaneously. And that is the first difference. And coming to the second difference, choice will allow the user to select only one option, whereas the list will allow multiple options to be selected by the user. So I'll show you the difference. So look at the output of the list. So we have created two lists in our program. This is a previous program that we have seen already. The first list displays four options which come under the operating system category. So it is displaying four options. So if you are able to see in a rectangular box, all the four list options are visible to the user simultaneously. Similarly, in the second one also, there are three options. So all the three options are visible to the user simultaneously. So look at the choice how many options we have created? Two choices. One is for representing operating system similar to that one, and second one is for browsers. So in operating systems choice we have four options, but how many of them are visible at a time? Only one of them is visible. Similarly, if you go to the browsers also, browsers choice also, there are three options, but out of them only one is visible to us. So this is the first difference that we have mentioned, right? Choice will display only one option to the user simultaneously, whereas list displays all the available options simultaneously. So this is the first difference. And coming to the second difference, if you observe, I'm able to select all the four options from operating systems: Windows, Android, Solaris, Mac OS, and you are able to see the selected options: Windows, Android, Solaris, and Mac OS. So this is possible with list. But whereas coming to choice, you cannot select more than one option. You will be able to select only one option, either Android or Solaris or Mac. Whatever you select, only that one will be selected, right? So that is a second difference. So this is what we mentioned here. Choice will allow the user to select only one option, whereas list will allow multiple options to be selected by the user. But anyhow, the list has as a mechanism using which we can restrict the user to select only one option. By default you can select any number of options, but we can have a restriction for that also, to see that the user will be able to select only one option from the list. So that is the programmer's wish, whether he wants to make that uh, user uh, capable of selecting all the options, more than one option, or only one option. Okay, so that is the difference. So now that you understood the difference, let us go through the program. Is that okay? Did you understand the difference, all of you? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So so let us again not discuss about this first few lines where we are importing packages and writing the applet HTML code. So now the class name is choice demo. It is extending applet class and implementing item listener. So this choice demo also generates item event, so we have to implement the item listener interface. So look at the first statement. We are creating reference variables for choice class. So to create a choice in our program, we have a predefined class called choice class. So using that we have to create objects. So I'm creating two reference variables first, and then a string message which is blank as in the previous program, and then here also I'm creating a font reference variable f. And coming to the void init method, I am setting the font, right? First by calling the three parameter constructor. First one is font, second one is font style, whether it is bold, or earlier we have used the plain text, now I'm using bold text here, and the size is 25. So after that what I'm doing, I'm instantiating the first choice, that is OS, by using the default constructor, and then setting the font size to uh, the font that we created earlier. So I'm doing that by calling set font method using the OS choice object. Then similarly browser also is instantiated, and then browser is set, font also is set by calling the set font method and passing f as object. So after the font is set for both the choice objects, now it is time for us to add these choices to our applet, right? So uh, first we need to add the choices to the choice box that you're creating. So for that what we need to, under OS we want to add four options. So to add options to a choice, we have add method defined in that choice class. So you have to call that add method by using whichever choice you want to add. Using that choice object, you have to call the add method. So under OS, this one I want to add four options. So call os.add method four times. So each time I'm calling, making a call to the add method, I'm adding one option. First one is Windows, second one is Android, third one is Solaris, and fourth one is Mac OS. So with this, in the first choice, that is OS, we have added four options, namely Windows, Android, Solaris, and Mac OS. Then coming to the browser, I'm adding three options. So I have to call the add method using browser object, browser.add three times. So the first option is Internet Explorer, second one is Firefox, third one is Chrome. So once you have completed creating these choice options, then we need to add this choice to the applet window. So for that we need to call add method. So observe the difference between this add and this add. This add has to be called using that particular choice objects, but this one you need not use any object because this is part of applet class and we are extending applet class. So we can directly call this add method and add the choice objects by calling add method. So I'm adding both the choices. One is first one is OS, second one is browser to the applet window. So with that, we have created two choices. First choice containing four options, second choice containing three options. Then after that, we have added both the choices to the applet window. Then the next step is what? To register the listener. So what listener interface we have to register? Item listener. So call add item listener using both the choice objects os.add item listener and browser.add item listener. Then we need to implement the method item state change, because this is a method which will be automatically called whenever an item event takes place in our applet window. So item state change method is calling repaint method. Repaint method in turn will call paint method. So the paint method, look at the paint method. First I'm calling set font method for the applet window. So this is for setting the font for text or string that we are displaying in the applet window. Earlier we have set the font for choice, right? Now we have to set the font for the string that is going to be displayed as output in your applet window. So after that, what I am doing, like we have done in the previous program, message is now uh, modified to current OS followed by a colon and a space. Then I am concatenating MSG with the value returned by OS dot get selected item. So what is this OS get selected item? Where is it defined? In the choice class. Okay, so this get selected item method returns whichever choice option you have selected under OS options will be returned. So that is concatenated to the existing MSG string, that is current OS. So if you have selected Windows, then this MSG will be now having current OS Windows. If you have selected Android, current OS Android. If you have selected Solaris, current OS Solaris. If you have selected Mac OS, then current OS is Mac OS. So we need to draw that output MSG using by calling the drawString method and passing MSG as first parameter, and I am displaying it at coordinate 6 comma 120. Then after displaying that, I need to modify the MSG so that this time the second choice option will be displayed. So I'm reassigning MSG with current browser and then concatenating it with the current browser that has been selected by calling get selected item using browser object. So now again I'm displaying this one at 6 comma 140. Okay, so I hope you understood. So no.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll place these two programs also in that Google Drive link, so you can download them and you can execute them on your systems. So any doubts?
Sir, previous programs are also not.
They are there. When did you see? You go and see now. Open the drive and see. Check. I posted them day before yesterday. Any other doubts?
Sir, can we add placeholder kind of thing?
Can we add
Placeholder kind of thing. Default.
placeholder? Okay, so there is no such kind of option here. You may find that option in swings. So we are now dealing with AWT. So Java has an advanced concept called swings, Java swings. So that also looks similar to AWT windows only, but they are more sophisticated and you'll have more options. If you go for Java swings, there you'll have placeholder kind of feature for text fields. I understood. In a browser window, when for example, you take Gmail, when you try to log into a Gmail account, that will display enter your email ID here, right? Inside the text field itself, it will display. Instead of using a label outside the text field, you will be able to display what is supposed to be entered in the text field inside the text field itself. And whenever you place the mouse cursor inside the text field, that will disappear and you can text something. So that is placeholder. Uh, so those who don't know about this placeholder, for their purpose, I am saying now this one. So the placeholder option is not available here in AWT, but you can use it with Java Swings. But Java Swings is not part of your syllabus.
Yes, sir.
Any other doubts?